All right. This is a movie that we are also behind on seeing. We've been wanting to see it. It's called The Sun.
No. We weren't behind. We saw it before it came out.
Oh, did we?
Last week
we
was
just
when it
haven't talked
opened.
about it.
Last week is when it opened. And we were
Okay,
supposed to
never
talk about it
mind.
last week.
I apologize. We weren't on the show last week.
The reason it seemed like it was longer is because it did a limited release to get for Academy Award recognition.
But it didn't come out.
It didn't come out till
Why?
last Friday.
Okay, well, hello. This is a new movie called The Sun, and it stars Hugh Jackman. It's got Laura Dern, Vanessa Kirby, Zen McGrath, and Sir Anthony Hopkins.
That's right.
So,
and it is written and directed by Florian Zeller, who also wrote it. It's part of a trilogy of plays that he did. That was The Father, the Mother, and the Son.
Correct. We saw The Father. We talked about it last year. It's starring Sir Anthony Hopkins.
It's about a guy with dementia or whatever. I guess that's what they decided.
We can't tell you.
The Father.
I know, but I don't want to spoil it.
That's not a spoiler because it's talked about.
It's actually such a great movie.
The Father is brilliant.
It keeps you guessing and you don't really know because you're seeing it through his eyes and things are changing. It's really good. And the only connection is he's in this movie showing up as Hugh Jackman's father.
And it seems, and I never found anything that was official, but it does seem to say that's who he is. So this is more of a prequel to that movie, but you don't need to see the other movie. It doesn't really matter.
So this is really about the relationship of Hugh.
I just hope we get the mother now so we can see all three of the stories.
It's the relationship of Hugh Jackman and his son. So it's about his son.
Anthony Hopkins, I think, only has really one scene in the movie where
he tells him, quit trying to do that. Treat him hard.
And you see why he is with his son and how he's trying to be different.
And so he's trying to be very loving and compassionate and considerate with his son who is struggling with mental health issues.
Yes.
So it says Peter, who's the dad, Hugh Jackman, has a very busy life. He's got a new wife, a new baby on the way, but he's dealing with his teenage son, Nicholas, who's having problems, and Laura Dern is the ex-wife, correct? Am I getting that one right? So the boy's having problems in school. He has no friends. He's very isolated and all this. And so Laura Dern's concerned. They go to the school. The boy ends up living with Hugh Jackman and the new wife because Hugh Jackman's like, maybe I can connect.
So you're dealing with some multiple layers here because you have the new family, you have the old family, you have the boys' drama, and then you have the parents trying to deal with it together while being not together.
Yeah.
And then creating friction because are you trying to be together? There's a lot of levels of realism here, which is, I think, where this became part of your issue is it was too close to real life.
It was.
It's depressing.
It's sad and it's depressing and
I think the reason The Father works better is I thought this was an excellent movie, but it is more streamlined to the real world. That it's a little close to home for certain people, depending on what you do is. Whereas The Father, even though it's real life, it creates a little bit of mystery as it's unraveling what's really going on. So there's a creative nature to the storytelling of you're like, oh, that's what over here. That wasn't what we thought it was. This one is what it is.
It is what it is. And at moments you have glimmers of hope that it's gonna get better and that living with his father and the father and son dynamic is gonna help him come out of this depression, or whatever. And so you kind of go back and
especially I think that ending was brilliant because it had that same idea of
there's that glimmer of hope. Everything
you think it ended some way and you're like, oh, it ended another way, and then you're like, oh, it did end another way. Like 3 layers of what almost like what could have been or what did happen kind of idea.
Yeah, and like your hope for, I think that's it, like your hope for your children.
Yeah.
In a certain way, Hugh Jackman has this whole idea in his head of this is what it could be. And then you come to the face to face with the reality of what it is. For me, there's the most heartbreaking scene is they finally get their son in an institution for therapy. And the son is just pleading, let me out. And the doctor's like, I know he's asking to let him out, but it's not safe. And so you see them leave. And I'm like, okay, good. They left him there. He needs help.
We all know where this is going.
They go back and get him. And I'm like, ugh. So, but I guess I get it. I mean,
it's frustrating because but again, it's a case of the people outside can see what you don't see.
Heart-wrenching.
You think things are getting better. People on the outside is like, no, they're not. And when you put yourself in that scenario, you're torn between what you want to be right and what you think is right, really happening. It's like you say, it's not any different than a relationship where two people think things are getting better, until they stop working on it because they think it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and in a risk of being depressing, that's what happened with my first marriage and my daughter passing away is we got through something that usually splits up marriages. And instead of building on that, hey, we're fine. And we were two young people that shouldn't have been married in the first place. So it crumbled, you know, and that's kind of what happens in the real world when you're making decisions. You don't always think about the hard truth of what needs to happen. You think about what's you want to happen and your hopes that it's going to be good, you know, and then 90% of the time you should have gone with the thing that was going to be the struggle.
Yeah. I feel like of the two, I think the father to me, this one's sadder. The father to me was more intriguing and kind of like it envelops you a little more. Both of them still show those struggle of people trying to maneuver whatever it is. Like here it's this issue with the son, here's the issue with the father. But you know, we see the son's perspective more from the parents, and the son is so isolated and insular in his depression or whatever. We don't get to see a lot of his.
Yeah.
But with the father, we see the father's like trying to reach and trying to think. So you see his journey as well as the struggle of everyone around him. So I think it's a little bit more. It draws you in a little more.
The irony is.
But this one's probably a more important story to see.
It is, but here's the irony of it. It's despite Anthony Hopkins only having a very tiny part in this movie, finding out the kind of person he is in this movie and seeing how sympathetic you are of him in the next movie, it's very ironic because it's like the mentality of get over it, stop letting them be pussies and this and that.
Treat your son
and now
hard.
He's very much that same helpless individual.
Because the way that movie ends, where he's like he wants his mommy.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's the same idea of stop letting him be so weak, and he's now completely weak and can't do anything about it. So it's that ironic.
But I do think this movie, it's important to watch. It's going to be hard for some people to watch.
Yes.
I think if you've lost a child.
Thankfully, there's no visual suicides or anything like that.
Suicide issues, mental health, people being and institutionalized, those kinds of things may be triggering for some people. But it's a really impactful story and it's really good. And I think that very final scene with Hugh Jackman in the living room, you know, at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking. He is so good, you guys.
I will say this might be one of his best performances because he's been great in so many things, but this is just him.
This is so stripped down.
Yeah, there's no physical, there's no muscles, there's no dancing, there's no singing, there's nothing.
Standing there.
And it's not even a sad performance from him, except for there are moments. But
it's at the very end.
It's this hopeful,
wistful,
naive performance because he thinks everything is fine, and it's like in the world when you think people tell you all the time, like there's something wrong with your mom, and there's something wrong with your friend, and
but you don't
see it because you're like they seem fine, and when you ask them and they say I'm fine, you're like see they're okay, and there's so much more there, and then by the time you start finally discovering it. You realize, oh my God, all these things I could have fixed and all these things.
And then you're left with that horrible sense of guilt. And that's how the movie leaves you.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, ugh.
And we're not saying if it ends on a depressing note for the boy or anything else.
Oh, no, everything.
It's just
everything does
his journey. His journey as a father. Is the son isn't even really the story. He is, but he's the catalyst of the story. It's really the father dealing with the son's story. And the son, he has his own story you're seeing, so it's not like just from Jackman's perspective, but it's him dealing with his son. And it's like where the father is the father dealing with it himself. This is the father dealing with the son, which makes me wonder if the mother story is the father dealing with the mother's situation or how it works.
I hope
we get it. I don't know.
Or if there's a way we could see the play online. I wonder if it's been recorded.
I don't know.
It's a great movie,
really
but it is
a depressing.
Sad. It's very sad.
And
it's a talkie.
We can't get through our show without her saying that at least once.
Yeah, it's a talkie. All right.